Welcome to LHC Unplugged. I'm Sarah Harrington. I am the Director of Communications here at LongHillChapel, and I have our lead pastor, Michael Hottie, with us. Hello, Pastor Michael.
Hello, Sarah.
This is an exciting episode.
Yes, it is.
So we have our first guest, and it's actually Scott Taylor. So he's the Chief Development Officer for Market Street Mission. Scott, welcome to the LHC Unplugged podcast.
How are you?
I'm good. It's so great to have you here.
Pastor, great to be with you guys.
Great to be with you. You're actually Scott Taylor, as Sarah said.
It's a great voice.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. You're kind. Yeah, a lot of great history with that name, and Lord's just given me some great opportunity, but we'll talk about that.
Yes, you've had quite the journey, and usually I don't get out radio voiced, but today we bow and tremble in your presence. Tell us a little about your journey. You've had quite the journey. You're now at Market Street Mission, but you've been some other places, and
yeah, for sure. So started high level radio 40 years, right? So you could equate that to the Israelites wandering 40 years in the desert. I don't know. That's depending how you look at it. But it was 15 years in commercial radio, secular radio. And then the Lord just really felt that the Lord was calling me into Christian radio, and ended up at 99.1 for about 25 years in a variety of positions, starting, on the air, and then in promotions, and then on the air, and then in programming, and then on the air, and then finally wrapping it up as general manager for about 6-7 years.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So how did you end up going from that entire, I hate to call it a career, but that entire field of work over to Market Street Mission?
Yeah, so interesting transition. Market Street was never on my radar. I knew of Market Street. I knew of Dave Scott. We all felt at 99.1 that things were just sort of coming to their natural conclusion. So Dave Scott called when he heard that, things had wound down at the radio station, and said, the Lord's not done with you yet. We have an opportunity here. Would love for you to start. And it was, give me a little bit of time to rest, get my wits about me again, and went down there, and it's just been a blast ever since.
So for our listeners, give us a brief overview of Market Street Mission.
Yeah, sure. So Market Street Mission is primarily an addiction recovery program. It's a free program, a residential program, where the guys will come in from anywhere from 8 months to a year. On the front end of that, though, we do what we call emergency services. So we're doing meals to the community. Anybody who's needs to fill their tummy or has not had a meal, we invite you to come in, and we've got breakfast and dinner for the community, and we'll give you a nice warm meal and get you settled again. If you need a place to stay for the night, we've got a shelter as well. Between the 3 locations now, we can accommodate somewhere in the neighborhood of about 50 guys overnight on a short-term basis. Yeah, so that's primarily where it's at. But you come in as a community member, give you a meal, give you a place to stay. We'll take your laundry. We'll try and get you situated and set up as best we can. If we think that maybe the Life Change program, the addiction recovery piece, is something that you ought to pursue, we'll absolutely talk with you about that.
So how many men do you currently have enrolled?
Yeah, so between the 3 sites, probably are at about 140 today, in various degrees of the program. So some are strictly overnight. They come in the afternoon, they spend the night, and they leave the next morning. We have some others that are in what we call the 30-day pre-program space. They'll come into the building. They're interested in being a part of the Life Change program. They're just not there yet. So we give them about a 30-day window to hang out and decide if it's a good fit for them and they're a good fit for the program. Then we have the program itself, and there are 3 classes a year. We've been fortunate, to have Long Hill host one of our graduations, actually a couple of our graduations, right? So we have three graduations a year, 3 classes a year, and there are always guys in some form of transition through those programs. Then we'll have guys who have graduated. They get 3 months to stay in the mission while they're out looking for their own place to live or for a job or whatever. And then, of course, the sober houses as well. There are 5 of them in New Jersey, 4 in Morris County, 1 in Neptune. And if guys have gone through the program and you don't feel it's safe to go back to where you came from, to your family or to friends or to the neighborhood or the community, you can apply for a spot in one of the sober houses.
So it sounds like there's kind of a shelter aspect to what you do, and also a recovery aspect as well.
Absolutely. So even for the guys, to your point, even for the guys who are in the sober houses, all those houses are within close proximity to the mission, whether it's Morristown or Asbury Park, and they still have all access to all of the services, the meals, the Bible studies, the chapel services, the group meetings, whatever counseling, whatever they need, it's still available to them.
That's great. When we're in New Jersey, in this area of New Jersey especially, it's easy to kind of just not even think that this would be something that's needed, the both programs of Market Street Mission. Can you tell us a little bit about what that need looks like here in New Jersey and in our relatively affluent area of living?
Well, certainly to the Life Change program, there exists those challenges. Folks are wrestling with their addictions at every socioeconomic status, right? Doesn't matter where you live or where you've come from. The addiction is kind of a, what would we call it, a non-discriminatory
it's not a respecter
challenge.
Of any kind of...
Right? So the addiction will lead some folks to be homeless. It will lead some folks to be spending money on drugs rather than food for their kids. That's sort of a niche that we can serve to try and build that relationship. Yeah, you would think New Jersey we have all our problems solved.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong going on in New Jersey. That's not necessarily the case because addiction is no respecter of persons.
Yeah.
And so part of what we're trying to do is just introduce the service, break down any barriers that folks would have about wanting to come into a program. And so the danger these days is, in the old days you thought of shelters and it was full of alcoholics, right? And that was probably true. Yeah. And it would take a guy like, the saying is you don't end up in Market Street because you had a bad weekend.
Yeah.
It was a lifetime of poor choices. Now it's because of the fentanyl and some of the other drugs, narcotics, the fall is so much quicker. And we're seeing guys who are much younger coming into the program. They've been addicted for 3, 4, 5 years, and they have hit rock bottom.
Wow.
Right? Whereas in the old days, we used to think of, a shelter or a life change program was somebody who had been addicted to alcohol for 25 or 30 years and finally reached the end of his rope, and that's just not the case anymore.
What makes Market Street Mission different than a shelter or rehab facility?
Yeah, so thanks to the Lord's favor and generosity, we don't take any government money and we don't take any insurance. The entire budget is funded by predominantly individuals. 80 to 85% of our budget is provided for by individual gifts, and then we do have some grants, some foundations, some community partnerships and churches and things like that support us, which we are eternally grateful for. But that's just been the Lord's doing. Just being able to have that many folks stand with us on a regular basis in a tangible way is really remarkable.
When you look at the program, there's obviously recovery programs of all sorts of different shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
What's the uniqueness with Market Street's approach to recovery?
So the staff loves Jesus. That's kind of where it starts and ends. We're not what they call a medically assisted treatment center. There are those out there, and sometimes they work for folks. We are abstinence-based, and we are Christian, evangelical Christian. So discipleship, Bible discipleship is absolutely a part of the program. There's chapel every morning. There are church services every Sunday. If you're in the program, you're going to a church as well as a church coming in every Sunday night to minister to you. There's intentional devotion and fellowship and Christian counseling as well as just addiction and counseling and things like that, group counseling. So I think that's what makes us unique in that sense. For better or for worse.
Yeah.
For the right person, it really works. It's amazing. It's remarkable to see it before your own eyes.
Yeah, and it's awesome that it's not just addiction. It's not just trying to address addiction or behavior. It's addressing a spiritual condition.
Yeah, absolutely.
That has a lot of impacts and effects in addiction as well.
When I first showed up, when Dave Scott first called me, and I first got sort of a grasp of the program in those first few weeks, and I went into Dave's office one day and I said, we should make this mandatory for every believer. This is amazing, It really is it's very intense and it's very concentrated. The flip side of that is that's what the guys expect when they leave. And then life kind of falls in around you and you go, well, that was a really good time, but that's not what, that's not, I now have the foundation to exist in a healthy and productive way, but that's not how life is, and that's why I think the sober houses are really helpful as well, because you've got a bunch of guys that are like-minded and you're living as a family and you've all been through the same struggle and you all came to the same end of the road and understood that it was only by the grace of God.
That's one of the things that's always struck me at the graduations, and it's one of our great honors to be able to host those here periodically at LongHillChapel. And it's one of those times when I get to stand in front of those guys that I'm just very aware of how important this is, like how much is in the balance. And the thing that's always impressed me in the midst of those times is hearing their testimonies and hearing them be able to speak very plainly about addiction and their addiction, but also to be able to do it without shame and to do it acknowledging and understanding the grace of God and the mercy of God and the chance that they have. And I always, they hand out challenge coins to each man. And I have one of those on my desk downstairs right now. And every time I look at it, I just pray for the work of Market Street and for the guys who are really in the fight as they go from the program into the sober house or back into life and just all of the challenges that will bring. You had talked about rock bottom before and the fact that maybe in days past that's at the end of a long road, but increasingly just because of some of the drugs and things that are available, it's a much shorter road. What does that look like for someone coming into Market Street?
Yeah, rock bottom for the guys that come in is primarily, I have nothing, I don't want anything. Okay, so Market Street kind of has street cred as it's the last resort. Like when nothing else has worked, then you come to Market Street. And the guys will tell you, it was either I come in to those doors underneath that Jesus Saves sign or I'm dead. They really felt like there was no hope. And, so fortunately we've got a great team and we've got the Lord's blessing and it all works for them.
I love that sign in Morristown, the Jesus Saves. It's this neon cross that says Jesus Saves. And it's just like a beacon, it's just there's all the signs and everything that you would expect to see in a city. And then there's that. And it just stands out.
And you've probably heard so many stories and seen so many testimonies come to life.
Yeah.
Is there one or two or just a couple that really stand out to you over your time there?
Yeah, so some of them are because of the longevity of their addiction. Some of them are because of the depth that the addiction took them to. I'll point to Jacob Gaeta, and you guys know Jacob because he's now our program director. And he was in the military, discharged, had some injuries. And, this is, some folks get addicted because they get into it early in their life and, it's the marijuana, it's the alcohol and their party. And that wasn't really part of Jacob's story. It was painkillers, right? He was just trying to escape the pain and got addicted and, didn't want to have anything to do with his family. And they continue to love on him. They're a great Christian family, you know them all. And so he ultimately is out, he's on the streets of Newark and he's just sleeping, surviving. And he will tell you the story. So a couple of years later, he graduates first in his class at Pillar College. But he said the first night I went in, so he comes through Market Street. I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over because I'm really excited about Jacob's story and I want to get it all in. And ironically, the video is on the website so you can see it for yourself. But so he finally gets to the end of his rope. He's got nothing. Nothing matters. There's no hope. He knows better, right? He's been raised in a Christian home, so nobody is sort of immune to this. Finally, he calls his mom. His mom comes down to Newark, picks him up, takes him to Market Street. He goes through the program. He enters Pillar College, goes through the program there, graduates first in his class. And he will tell you, the first time he came into Pillar College, into one of the classes, the classroom overlooked the bench in Military Park where he used to sleep at night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
Wow.
So that's one of the more dramatic stories. And I love Jacob, and Jacob's a cool guy, and everybody wants to be like Jacob. Oh. And until I heard that he was going to be married, was engaged and going to be married, I wanted to introduce him to my daughter. But anyway, yeah, it worked out all right for Anna. It worked out all right for Jacob, too. He's got a great wife and a great family. But he's a rock star. Like in God's band, he's a rock star in my mind.
And you talked about how he was brought up in a Christian home.
Yeah.
Do you find that some of the men do have that faith-based background, or can it be across the board?
Yeah, it can be across the board. I don't say it would swing necessarily one way or the other. I think the guys that come through, they are either reignited in their faith. We could have a theological debate about, the substance of their faith to begin with. But anyway, let's say that they're reignited in their faith. It's something that they are familiar with at least. And then for other guys, it's totally brand new. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Yeah, they're agnostic or atheist or some other world religion or something. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Recovery is an interesting thing because I think we all love the stories of Jacob, like Jacob, who there's just this path and yet goes down to the bottom of a valley, but then it climbs its way back out. And as well as anybody that everybody's recovery journey is different. And for a lot of people, it's a long road. Why do you think that it really seems like it's the case very often?
Yeah, so for some, even without the addiction, we get through the life change piece. They're still dealing with some of the issues that brought them to the drugs and alcohol to begin with, right? Whether it's self-esteem or just maybe some variation of mental illness or, for someone who's had back surgery and is addicted to the painkillers, well, that pain didn't go away.
Yeah.
Right.
How you dealt with it is now different, and you're certainly relying on the Lord's power and grace every day, but you're still dealing with the physical pain. And so I think that's part of it. You can fix some pieces. The Lord can do remarkable things with the human soul, and He does. He does remarkable things with the human mind. He also does remarkable things with the human body. But to say that all happens every time, all the time, that's not necessarily true. Mm-hmm. So folks are still dealing with some of the issues that brought them into that situation to begin with.
So you kind of find that at Market Street or really any program, you're able to touch some of those issues, and obviously God can superintend any of them.
Absolutely.
But then there's other ones that are either outside or adjacent to or more deeply seated.
Look at Paul. I do the things I don't want to do, and I don't want to do, and I don't do the things I should do.
Yeah.
So we're all on some level struggling with something. It may not be as debilitating, or we may not be looking for an escape through alcohol and drugs like these guys did, but yeah, it's probably part of the human condition.
Yeah, I think as you were saying that, I was thinking exactly those words. It's part of the human condition in the sense that, we all have something that we're clinging to, looking to, hoping to save us, hoping to, dull the pain, whatever you want to put in there. And some of those things are, I don't know how else to say it, they're more socially acceptable than others,
right.
But it is part of what people do with careers and money and resources and things and relationships and sometimes it's substances, but there's something common to us that is in all of us and is kind of in common with the work you're doing at Market Street as well.
Yeah.
And if someone is listening and they are feeling maybe a pull to something like this, they're looking for help, how do they find you guys? Like, how do they kind of reach out? What's the best way?
You can visit the website, marketstreet.org. There are some buttons right at the top of the screen, and one of them says, I need help. I think it says I need help. It might say get help. But in any case, you click on that, and the sites will pop up, phone numbers, addresses. Walk through the door. The guys at the front desk will be happy to talk to you. Most of them have been through the program themselves, so they can tell you firsthand. Call us, stop in, visit the website, whatever you need to do. Yeah, we want to help.
And then for all of us, what's a tangible way that we could get involved with Market Street Mission? I know there's probably a bunch of different ways, but you can give them all to us if you want.
I'll give you a few. Well, you can certainly volunteer. We really do rely on volunteers. You can do that at the website as well. There are a number of events that we do throughout the year. There's enough going on in the building that we can plug in some volunteers as well, whether it's serving meals or working, in the offices and things like that. And then if you want to donate, that would be fine too. This is not an appeal or a solicitation. It's just a suggestion if you're curious. Another way to support, if you're really big on shopping, we have a thrift store and down in Morristown. And the tagline is shopping saves lives. They're all donated goods. They're all donated to the mission. And then we set them up in this huge warehouse on George Street. And then all the proceeds go to the program.
Yeah, I just, we have a donation bin for Market Street out in the back of LongHillChapel. And I just, past couple of days, brought a bunch of my dad's clothes up here. And I think it's something just to say that there's a lot of place you can donate clothes and shoes. But if you do it here to Market Street, it makes a difference. We are thrilled that Market Street Mission for many years has been one of our missions and community care partners as we seek to reach the world beyond our walls. And sometimes beyond our walls isn't overseas or even in another language. It's right across the street. It's in the next town. Yeah. And maybe it's someone who lives next to you or someone you would never even expect is in that struggle and is in that fight. And that's why we're so thankful for the work that you do. Scott, for spending time with us today and for just the battle in many ways that's going on right now in men's hearts and lives as God gets to be on the front lines through you and through Market Street to see redemption truly happen.
Well, thanks so much for listening to LHC Unplugged. We are so thankful for Scott Taylor and what Market Street Mission is doing in our community, and we will link all the information Scott talked about in our show notes today. As a reminder, we gather on Sundays at 10:15, both in person on Shumpike Road in Chatham, New Jersey, and online at lhcnj.net. And if you have a question for our pastors to answer, please send it in to us. And you can do that by emailing it to us at questions@lhcnj.net. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to having you next time.